The unregistered signal, the black of space stretched in every direction. Cold and endless, on the outer edge of the Galactic Empire's border, Patrol Station 7 floated quietly inside. The crew worked through another slow shift. Nothing ever happened here, just cargo ships, civilian cruisers, and the occasional pirate who surrendered at the first sight of an Imperial destroyer. That's why when the alarm blared, every head turned. The sensor officer, a young ensign named Velric, stared at his console in disbelief. "Captain," he called out, his voice tight. "I've got an unidentified contact, approaching fast." The captain, an old veteran named Torvin, frowned and stepped forward. "Run the registry scan," he ordered. Velric's hands moved quickly, feeding the signal into the Empire's massive ship database. Every registered vessel in the galaxy, from the smallest scout to the largest battleship, was logged there. After a moment, Velric's eyes widened. "No match," he said quietly. The room went silent. That was impossible. Every ship was required to be registered with the Empire. Even criminals had stolen vessels with serial codes that could be traced. A completely unregistered ship meant one thing: it came from outside the known galaxy. The captain's voice was calm but hard. "Range? 200,000 kilometers and closing," Velric replied. "It's not responding to hails." Torvin's jaw tightened. "Raise shields," he ordered. The sound of energy barriers powering up hummed through the station. They tried again to contact the ship. "This is Imperial Patrol Station 7. The comm officer said into the transmitter, 'Identify yourself immediately, or we will fire.'" Only static came back. The unidentified vessel kept coming. Its speed was steady, deliberate, like it knew exactly where it was going. On the tactical display, the ship appeared as a red dot against the grid. Slowly, that dot grew larger. "Magnify visual," Torvin commanded. The screen flickered, and the first image of the vessel appeared. No one spoke. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its hull was black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Strange markings like scars ran along its sides. No known Imperial design matched its shape, sleek yet brutal, built for both speed and war. "Arm all weapons," Torvin ordered. "Yes, Captain," came the reply. Laser batteries powered up, missile tubes unlocked. Targeting computers locked onto the incoming vessel. Still, it did not slow. It came closer and closer. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. "Sir," Velric said suddenly, "I'm detecting something strange." "What?" Velric's fingers tapped the console. "It's scanning us, but I can't detect what technology it's using. It's not like anything we know." Torvin's eyes narrowed. That meant advanced tech, possibly beyond Imperial science. "Try one last hail," Torvin said. The comm officer opened the channel, his voice sharp. "Unidentified vessel, this is your final warning. Identify yourself or you will be destroyed." For a moment, nothing happened. Then crackle static broke into sound. A voice spoke, deep and steady. But the language was alien. No translator could make sense of it. The crew looked at each other, unsettled. Then the voice stopped and returned again, this time speaking perfect Imperial standard. "You are in our way," it said. The bridge fell silent. Torvin felt a chill run down his spine. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement. Whoever they were, they weren't afraid. "Helm," Torvin said. "Hold position, but prepare to fire." The crew's hands hovered over their consoles. The unregistered vessel was now close enough for the station's external sensors to pick up details. Hull bore weapon ports that glowed faintly red. Energy readings spiked. "Sir, it's charging something," Velric warned. "Shields to maximum." Torvin barked. Then, as if it was playing with them, the strange ship slowed to a crawl. Its massive shadow passed across the station's forward viewport. The crew could see small moving shapes, turrets, drones, maybe even boarding craft hidden within its armor. Every instinct in Torvin's body screamed danger. "Captain," the comm officer whispered, "it's sending a direct transmission to you." Torvin's stomach tightened. "Put it through," he said. The screen changed. No face appeared, only a dark silhouette against a dimly lit command room. The voice spoke again, this time. The words were crystal clear. "We are humans. Stand down." Every officer on the bridge froze. Humans. That word hadn't been heard in the Empire for centuries. The last records described them as a lost, dangerous species, vanished into the dark beyond the rim, if they were back. It could only mean trouble. Torvin swallowed hard. His mind raced. Who were these humans? And why had they come straight to Imperial space? The first visual, the silence on the bridge, was heavy. Every officer stared at the screen, replaying those words in their minds. "We are humans." Captain Torvin's fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. He had read about them once in a classified Imperial archive. The humans were described as unpredictable, stubborn, and far too dangerous to leave unchecked, and yet, here one of their ships was, right on the Empire's doorstep. "Bring up a full visual scan," Torvin ordered. Velric's hands danced across the controls. The tactical display flickered, then shifted to a live camera feed. Gasps escaped from the crew. The vessel filled the screen, its hull black as void, edges sharp and predatory along its sides. Strange markings glowed faintly in colors the human eye could barely name. Some looked like battle scars, melted grooves from unimaginable weapons. Others looked like deliberate symbols, warnings, or history, perhaps. Size? Torvin asked. "Approximately 1.4 kilometers long," Velric replied, his voice unsteady. "That's larger than any destroyer in the fleet." The captain's lips pressed into a thin line. "Armament readings?" "Unknown." Velric said, "It's using stealth shielding to mask most of its systems. But whatever it's hiding, it's powerful, sir." The ship drifted closer. And now the bridge crew could see it wasn't smooth. Its armor plates had layers like it had been built, rebuilt, and upgraded countless times. It wasn't a sleek, ceremonial Imperial warship. This vessel was a survivor. It had been through battles the Empire could barely imagine and come out stronger each time. Then, without warning, the ship shifted its angle. Its prow turned directly toward the station. The view on the main screen seemed to stretch as the black shape loomed larger. Weapons ports, once hidden in shadow, rotated to face them. Each cannon was unlike anything in Imperial design, thick barrels, surrounded by strange coils and panels that pulsed with red light. The crew stiffened. "Sir," Velric whispered. "It's targeting us." Torvin raised his hand. "Hold fire," he said, his voice firm but low. "Let's see what they do." A soft hum rolled through the station's sensors. Something was charging. The lights on the enemy's weapons grew brighter. On the monitor, readouts spiked into the red. Then, in a sudden burst, a blinding beam shot past the station. It didn't hit them. Instead, it struck a drifting asteroid several thousand kilometers away. In one instant, the asteroid didn't just break, it vaporized into molten fragments. The shockwave rippled across their sensors. The crew stared in disbelief. Even the Empire's most advanced weapons couldn't do that with a single shot. The cum crackled. The same human voice spoke again. "This is a warning," it said. "We don't want war, but we will defend ourselves." Torvin took a slow breath. His mind raced. If they could do that to an asteroid with a warning shot, what could they do to the capital? He leaned forward. "Open a secure channel to High Command," the cum officer nodded and began transmitting the data. But Velric suddenly turned pale. "Sir." "They're broadcasting," he said. "Broadcasting where?" Torvin demanded. "Every Imperial channel, sir," Velric replied. "All sectors, all frequencies." The bridge speakers came alive. Across the Empire, every civilian, every soldier, every official heard the same message. "We are humans. We have returned. The galaxy will change." Shock spread across Torvin's crew. Messages like that were dangerous. They sparked panic, rebellion, hope. All at once, Torvin clenched his jaw. This wasn't just a ship, it was a statement. And the Empire would not ignore it. The human vessel slowed to a near stop, hanging in space like a predator watching its prey. Then almost casually, it began. Transmitting coordinates. Velric frowned at the data. Sir, those coordinates are for an empty sector. Halfway to the capital, the human voice returned one last time. Meet us there. You have one standard cycle. Refuse, and we will come to you. The transmission ended. The massive black vessel rotated away from the station. It didn't jump to hyperspace. Instead, it simply began gliding toward Imperial space, like it knew. No one could stop it. Torvin looked out at the shrinking shape of the human warship. His gut told him one thing: whatever was coming next would change the galaxy forever. The power display. The human vessel moved through space at a steady, unhurried pace. Captain Torvin and his crew kept their sensors locked on it. No Imperial ship tried to block its path. At least, not yet. Every commander along the border knew. This was no ordinary contact. It was a predator that didn't need to run. In the command chamber of Imperial High Command, panic brewed. Admirals and ministers argued. Some demanded the human ship be destroyed before it reached the inner systems. Others warned that attacking it could provoke a war the Empire wasn't ready for. No one could deny what the patrol station had sent them: footage of the asteroid vaporizing in one shot. Weapons that powerful could crush even the Empire's largest dreadnoughts. Meanwhile, the human vessel kept advancing. It ignored all demands to halt. It didn't even bother to hide its location, almost as if it wanted the Empire to watch. Then, without warning, it made its move. Sensors across 3 sectors picked up sudden energy spikes. Imperial scouts reported a group of pirate cruisers moving toward the human ship. These pirates weren't foolish. They were desperate. In their minds, if they could cripple the vessel and sell its tech, they'd be rich beyond measure. The pirates closed in. Their ships were heavily armed, modified for speed and quick strikes. They circled the black vessel like vultures. The lead pirate sent a signal, mocking in tone. "Big ship all alone," the pirate captain said. "Drop your weapons and maybe we let you live." The human ship didn't reply. Instead, its hull panels shifted, sections sliding open like the petals of some metal flower. Small shapes emerged, dozens of them, sleek drones, black and silver. They shot outward, silent and fast. Before the pirates could even lock weapons, the drones were upon them. What happened next was over in seconds. The first pirate cruiser's engines exploded. Its hull split in two. The second was sliced apart by beams so thin they were almost invisible. The third simply vanished in a flash of white light. No wreckage. Nothing left. The remaining ships tried to flee, but the drones moved faster than anything the pirates had seen. One by one, each pirate vessel went dark, weapons offline, engines dead. In less than 2 minutes, the entire pirate fleet was disabled or destroyed. The drones returned to their mothership, docking smoothly into hidden bays. The human vessel didn't slow down, didn't send a message, didn't even acknowledge the fight. It was as if swatting the pirates was nothing more than clearing dust from its path. Imperial officers watching the live feed were silent. No one in the Empire's fleet could take out 6 armed ships that quickly. Not without taking damage, not without even raising shields. In the capital, the Emperor himself watched the footage. In his private chamber, his hands tightened on the arms of his throne. He remembered the old stories. The humans were not conquerors by nature, but when provoked, they became unstoppable. And now, one of their ships was heading straight for his empire. On board the human vessel, deep inside its command center, the crew moved with quiet precision. Their leader, Commander Hale, stood before a glowing tactical map. A calm voice behind him said, "They're watching us." Hale's lips curved slightly. "Good, let them see," he replied. "This isn't just a visit. It's a demonstration." Back on the Imperial side, High Command scrambled to form a plan. They began assembling a fleet, dozens of cruisers, destroyers, and even the Emperor's prized warship, the Celestial Hammer. If the humans wanted a meeting in Imperial space, they would meet them with overwhelming force. But the humans seemed to anticipate this, As the vessel reached the coordinates it had sent earlier, it stopped. Then it began transmitting a signal. This time, it was a visual feed, not to the Emperor, not to military command, but to every major broadcast channel in the Empire. The image showed the human commander. His uniform was dark and functional, marked with no insignia the Empire could recognize. Behind him, the hum of advanced technology filled the air. "I am Commander Hale of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet," he said clearly. "We come with a message. We will deliver it once. Refuse to hear it, and we will act accordingly." The words were not shouted, not threatening, but they carried weight. Then, to prove his point, Hale turned to someone off-screen and nodded. In the background, the ship's weapon systems came alive. A nearby uninhabited moon appeared on the display, one being fired. In an instant, the moon cracked, splitting into glowing fragments that drifted apart like broken glass. No explosion, no lingering debris, just complete, controlled destruction. The feed cut off. Silence followed across the Empire. The message was clear. This was power beyond anything they had faced before. And now, the humans were asking for a meeting in the command center of the Imperial fleet. Admiral Saren turned to his officers. "Ready the Armada," he said grimly. "If this is a negotiation, it will be one backed by firepower." Far away, on the human vessel, Commander Hale looked at the star map. His eyes lingered on the Imperial capital. "Message delivered," he murmured. "Now let's see if they listen." The Emperor's panic in the heart of the Imperial capital. The grand palace of the Emperor glowed under the light of the system's twin suns. Its marble towers reached into the sky, guarded by energy shields and rings of warships. Inside, the Imperial throne room was alive with hurried voices. Officers, ministers, and advisors moved quickly, each bringing grim news. The Emperor sat on his throne, his face carved from stone. But behind his calm mask, his mind was racing. The words of the human commander replayed in his head. "We come with a message. Refuse to hear it, and we will act accordingly." Minister Kale, a thin man with sharp eyes, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the footage from the border stations is spreading faster than we can contain it," he said. "Every citizen has seen the human ship destroy the moon. People are talking, some are afraid, others admire them." The Emperor's gaze darkened. "Admire?" he asked, his voice heavy. Kale nodded reluctantly. "Yes, sire. To many, they seem like saviors. They see them as a force strong enough to stand against our rule." An old man in the council, Lord Vareth, the Imperial historian, spoke next. "I warned you decades ago," he said quietly. "The ancient records mention humans. The chronicles called them Deathworlders. Survivors of a world too hostile for most life. They are dangerous not because they seek war, but because they never lose one." The Emperor's jaw clenched. "Legends," he said. "Stories told to frighten children." But his voice lacked conviction. Even he had seen the destruction of the moon. Even he had heard the calm, steady tone of Commander Hale. It wasn't the voice of a man bluffing. General Orden, commander of the Imperial Navy, stepped forward. "Sire, with your permission, I have already mobilized the Celestial Hammer and 30 capital ships." The Emperor turned his gaze on the general. "And if they can destroy a moon with a single shot?" he asked coldly. Orden hesitated. "We will adapt our strategy," he said. Though his voice betrayed doubt, the room was silent for a long moment. Then the Emperor rose, his long cloak trailing behind him. "Summon every available fleet," he ordered. "Form a wall between the humans and my capital." He paused, looking toward Vareth. "And have the archives searched. If there is any truth in those old stories, I want to know it. Far from the palace, deep within the Imperial intelligence network, analysts worked without rest. They replayed every second of the human transmissions, scanning for hidden codes or signals. They studied the ship's weapons, its shield emissions, its heat patterns. Nothing made sense. The technology was both alien and impossibly refined, no wasted energy. No unnecessary design. It was as if the ship had been built with only one purpose: absolute efficiency in battle. One young analyst leaned closer to her screen. Her heart raced. She had magnified a section of the hull and spotted faint markings words in a language the Empire's database could not translate. But when she enhanced the image, she froze. The symbols were not alien. They were letters, and she realized they formed two words: Terran Fury. Back in the palace war room, reports came in from across the Empire. The human vessel was now halfway to the capital. It didn't stop for inspections, didn't respond to hails when smaller patrol ships tried to scan it. It simply glided past as though they weren't there. It wasn't rushing, it wasn't hiding. It was simply coming like it had all the time in the galaxy. The Emperor stood over the massive holographic map of Imperial space. Every movement of the human ship was tracked in real time. Its course was perfectly straight. No evasive maneuvers, no detours. It was a path of confidence, almost arrogance. What is their goal? The Emperor demanded. Admiral Orden replied, "They want us to see them. They want to test our response before they even reach us." Lord Vareth added, "No, they want you to know they are not afraid, sire. This is psychological war as much as it is a display of power." The Emperor's expression hardened. "Then let them see this," he said. "By the time they arrive, they will face the largest fleet ever assembled in the Empire's history." In the docking rings around the capital, thousands of crew members rushed to load weapons and supplies. The Celestial Hammer, pride of the Imperial Navy, gleamed like a jewel under the twin suns. Its main cannon was capable of piercing planetary shields, but compared to the human weapon that shattered a moon, even the hammer's power seemed uncertain. High above, in the quiet of his private chamber, the Emperor stood alone by the great window. He looked out at the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the humans were coming. He didn't know what message they carried, but deep in his bones, he felt it would not be one he wanted to hear. And in the dark void of space, aboard the Terran Fury, Commander Hale studied the live feed of the Imperial fleet gathering. A slow smile crossed his face. "Good," he said softly. "Let them bring everything they have." He turned to his crew. "Once we reach the capital, they'll finally understand why we're here." The fleet clashed. The Imperial fleet stretched across space like a steel wall. Dozens of capital ships floated in formation, each bristling with weapons. Gunship squadrons moved between them like swarms of insects, engines glowing blue. In the center of this armada stood the pride of the Empire, the Celestial Hammer, its golden hull shining under the light of the nearby sun. From the bridge of the Hammer, Admiral Orden watched the tactical map. The single red marker representing the human vessel moved steadily toward them. No change in speed, no sign of evasive movement. "They're not slowing," his first officer said quietly. Orden's lips pressed into a thin line. "They should," he replied, "because they're about to meet the full strength of the Empire." In the void ahead, the Terran Fury appeared. At first it was just a black speck against the stars. But as it drew closer, its true size and presence became clear. It dwarfed the destroyers around it and even challenged the length of the Hammer. Its black armor drank in the light, its markings glowing faintly as if alive. The Imperial fleet's comms came alive. "This is Admiral Orden of the Imperial Navy." The Admiral's voice boomed across all channels. "You are entering restricted space. Shut down your engines, power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded." For a moment, there was silence. Then the human commander's voice came, calm and clear. "This is Commander Hale of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Your blockade is irrelevant. We will proceed." Orden's eyes narrowed. "Proceed, and you will be fired upon," he warned. Hale's voice didn't change. "Fire, and you will be educated." The tension broke when the Hammer's forward batteries lit up. Beams of blue energy lanced out toward the Terran Fury. Missiles streaked across the darkness. The first wave of the Empire's attack had begun. But the human ship didn't dodge. Instead, A shimmering field of light rippled across its hull. The beam struck and simply vanished, absorbed into the field without so much as a flicker. The missiles detonated harmlessly in bursts of fire that faded into space. The Terran Fury moved forward, untouched. Then its hull shifted, sections of black armor sliding open to reveal weapons that pulsed with red light. A deep hum rolled through the void, and in a single precise burst, one of the Empire's destroyers exploded into molten fragments. There was no debris drifting away, just glowing dust, scattered like sparks. Impossible! An Imperial weapons officer shouted aboard the Hammer. They destroyed the Vanguard with one shot. Orden slammed his fist onto the console. All ships, fire at will. The void lit up with fire. Dozens of ships unleashed their full arsenal's lasers. Plasma cannons, missile salvos turning the darkness into a storm of light. The Terran Fury advanced through it all. Its shields flared briefly, then returned to their calm shimmer. Not a single blast pierced its defense. The human vessel responded. From hidden bays, waves of black and silver drones erupted into the battle. They moved with impossible speed, weaving between the Empire's ships. Targeting computers on the Imperial side couldn't lock onto them. They were simply too fast. One drone slipped under a cruiser's belly and fired a thin beam upward. The cruiser's engines died instantly, sending it drifting powerless into the void. "Sir, they're disabling ships without destroying them," an officer reported. "They're holding back." Orden's eyes narrowed. To him, that was worse than outright destruction. It was mockery. "They think we're weak," he growled. "Then show them we are not." The Celestial Hammer's main cannon began to charge. The giant barrel glowed with golden light, building enough power to punch through a planetary shield. When it fired, the beam tore through the void toward the Terran Fury. For the first time, the human ship's shields flared brightly. The beam didn't vanish, it hit, and the shockwave rippled across the human hull. But when the light faded, the Terran Fury was still there, its armor intact, its weapons still glowing. "Commander Hales." Voice came across the comms, a strong strike. But too slow. The human ship returned fire. A single beam lanced out, not at the Hammer, but at the empty space between two Imperial capital ships. The beam cut cleanly through their connecting formation, forcing them to scatter. It wasn't a kill shot, it was a warning. On the bridge of the Hammer, Orden felt the shift in momentum. The humans weren't here to destroy them yet. They were proving a point. Every maneuver, every shot, every drone movement was calculated. This is a demonstration, Orden realized. They're showing us what they can do without even trying. And then, without warning, the human drones pulled back. The Terran Fury slowed to a halt. A channel opened, this time video. Commander Hales' face appeared. "This battle is over," he said calmly. "Stand down. We will proceed to the capital to deliver our message. You have one chance to listen." The screen went dark. Around the Terran Fury, the Imperial fleet hung silent, damaged, scattered and humiliated, yet still alive. The human ship turned slowly and resumed its course toward the Imperial capital, not because it had been allowed through, but because nothing could stop it. The revelation: the Terran Fury moved through the final stretch of space before the Imperial capital. The battle behind it was already legend. In less than an hour, the Empire's largest fleet had been scattered without a single human casualty. Word spread fast across stations, cities, and colonies. Citizens whispered about the black ship that could not be stopped. Inside the Emperor's palace, the atmosphere was electric. Guards stood rigid, ministers whispered, and high-ranking officers paced the floor. The Emperor sat upon his throne, his expression calm, but his eyes betrayed something: rare uncertainty. Around him, advisors debated what would happen when the humans arrived. "They mean to humiliate us in front of the galaxy," Minister Kale said sharply. "They will demand tribute, territory, perhaps even the throne itself." Lord Vareth, the historian, shook his head slowly. "No. This is not conquest. The ancient records are clear. Humans fight to end oppression, not to rule. If they have returned, it is because they believe the galaxy has gone too far in the wrong direction. General Orden, still in his armor from the failed battle, stepped forward. Sire, whatever their purpose, we must be ready to fight again. Their weapons are powerful, but they are still mortal. Varith's voice was calm but firm. Were they mortal when they shattered an asteroid? In seconds? When they cracked a moon like it was glass? Be careful, General. Mortals do not bend the laws of war so easily. A deep hum echoed across the capital as the Terran Fury entered orbit. Its shadow passed over the palace's outer shields. Civilian crowds gathered in plazas and on rooftops. To see the black ship, from below, it looked like a moving mountain of metal, its markings glowing faintly against the void. A transmission request came directly to the Emperor's private channel. The COM officer's voice was tight. Sire, the humans are asking to speak. The Emperor gave a single nod. Put them through. The great screen in the throne room flickered to life. Commander Holly appeared, standing in a room of dim light and gleaming metal. He wore no crown, no symbols of rank, only a simple black uniform with a silver crest shaped like a star. Emperor of the Galactic Empire, Holly began, his voice steady. I have come with a message, not for you alone, but for all under your rule. The image shifted. Now it was a galactic map. Hundreds of points of light marked planets, stations, and systems. Red circles appeared over some. These are the worlds where your empire's law has been built. On slavery, fear, and violence, Holly said. You take the weak and call it order. You crush the free and call it peace. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. And you come to challenge our rule? Holly shook his head slightly. I come to end it where it violates the right of any species to live without chains. Murmurs spread through the throne room. Some of the Emperor's ministers looked pale. Others clenched their fists in anger. Hale's voice didn't rise, but his words carried weight. We have watched from beyond your borders for generations. Your fleets grow larger. Your reach spreads farther, but your mercy has shrunk to nothing. He stepped closer to the camera. We will give you 1 standard month to release the occupied worlds marked here. The red circles on the map pulsed brighter. If you do, there will be no war. He paused. If you refuse, then war will come, not with invasions or sieges, but with the slow and certain destruction of every tool you use to enforce your rule. Your fleets will not reach your colonies. Your weapons will not fire. Your walls will not stand. The Emperor leaned forward. You think a single ship can bring down the Empire? Hale's eyes were calm. 1 ship was enough to reach your throne, he said. Do you want to see what happens when we send more? The screen darkened for a moment, then lit again, showing dozens of other black vessels. They floated in deep space, somewhere far from the capital. Each was as large and heavily armed as the Terran Fury. This is not all we have, Holly said, his voice still calm. This is only what I am willing to show you. Gasps rippled through the throne room. Even the Emperor's most loyal generals looked shaken. Then without another word, the human commander stepped back and ended the transmission. The throne room was silent. Every person inside was left with the same thought. If the humans were telling the truth, the Empire had just met a force it could not defeat. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. Begin preparations, he said, his voice low but firm. Contact every sector governor, every admiral. We will decide how to answer them. Far above, the Terran Fury drifted in the capital's orbit, silent and unmoving. But its presence was heavier than any fleet. Every eye in the Empire was on it, waiting to see what the Emperor would choose: peace or war. And somewhere deep within the human ship, Commander Holly stood at the viewport, his eyes fixed on the shining city below. They have a choice, he said quietly to his crew. Let's hope they choose well. The new order. The Imperial Palace was silent. Every corridor, every chamber, every balcony seemed to hold its breath. High above the planet, The Terran Fury remained in orbit, motionless, its black silhouette cutting across the stars. For 2 full days, it neither sent another message nor moved from its position. But its presence weighed heavily on the capital, like a blade hanging just above the Empire's head. Inside the throne room, the Emperor sat in council with his most trusted advisors. General Orden stood stiffly beside the holographic map of Imperial space. Minister Kale paced the floor, his voice sharp. "Sire, we cannot yield to their demands. If we release those worlds, we will look weak. Our rivals will take advantage." Lord Vareth, the historian, spoke calmly. "If we do not, we risk a war we cannot win." The Emperor looked at the red circles still glowing on the star map. Each one represented a world where Imperial control was absolute, where resources, labor, and lives were taken for the benefit of the core systems. To give them up would mean reshaping the Empire itself. Finally, the Emperor stood, his dark cloak falling around him. "Summon the humans," he said. "If they want an answer, they will have it from my own mouth." The call went out, and within minutes, the Terran Fury descended slowly from orbit. Its vast shadow washed over the city as it passed through the atmosphere. It did not land in the palace gardens. Instead, it stopped just above the central plaza, hovering silently while a single shuttle detached from its underbelly. Commander Hawley stepped out when the shuttle touched down. He was flanked by 2 unarmed crew members. The crowd that had gathered in the plaza murmured in awe and fear. Imperial guards lined the walkway, their eyes wary. Hawley walked forward without hesitation, his boots clicking against the marble. Inside the throne room, the Emperor waited on his high seat. When Hawley entered, the room seemed to grow smaller. Here stood the man who had defeated the Empire's strongest fleet without losing a single ship. The Emperor's voice carried across the hall. "You gave me a choice," he said, "to free those worlds, or face war." Hale's expression did not change. "That choice still stands," he replied. "And time runs short." The Emperor descended the steps from his throne. They faced each other in the open space between the guards. For a long moment, they simply studied one another. One was ruler of a vast empire, the other the commander of a force so dangerous it had humbled that empire in days. Then, to the shock of the entire court, the Emperor spoke the words no one expected. "The worlds you have marked will be released." Gasps erupted around the room. Some ministers shouted in protest. Others stared in disbelief. The Emperor raised a hand for silence. "I do not make this decision out of fear," he said, his voice firm. "I make it because an empire built only on force will not last, perhaps. It is time for change." Hawley gave a small nod. "Then you have chosen wisely," he said. He stepped forward and extended a small silver device. "This is a communications relay. Through it you may contact us if the agreement is broken. If you keep your word, we will not interfere with your governance. But if you betray it, we will return." The Emperor took the device. For a brief moment, their eyes met not as enemies, but as leaders who understood the cost of power. Over the next weeks, the galaxy watched as Imperial garrisons withdrew from the marked worlds. Chains were broken, mines were shut down, and slave markets were dismantled. In some places, citizens celebrated in the streets. In others, the sudden vacuum of power led to chaos. But the humans were true to their word. They did not take control. They simply ensured the Empire kept its promise. The Terran Fury visited several of these freed worlds, sometimes to help with rebuilding, sometimes to deter opportunists who thought to take advantage of the Empire's retreat. Everywhere it went, the sight of the black ship brought hope to some and fear to others. In the Imperial capital, things changed quietly but permanently. The Emperor still ruled, but now there was an awareness, an understanding that far beyond the core systems, a power existed that could end the Empire in a single campaign. Policies shifted. Rebellions were handled with negotiation instead of mass force. Trade agreements replaced blockades, and slowly the Empire's iron grip loosened. Months later, in the quiet of deep space, Commander Hawley stood on the Bridge of the Terran Fury. The stars stretched before him, cold and endless. A crew member approached. "Orders, Commander?" Hale's gaze stayed fixed on the distant light of the Imperial systems. "Plot a course for the next sector," he said. "There are other empires, other chains to break." The ship's engines flared. Slowly, the Terran Fury turned and vanished. Into the darkness, behind it, the Galactic Empire entered a new age, one where power was no longer absolute, and where every ruler remembered the day a single unregistered vessel came from the stars and changed the galaxy forever.